How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'll be showing you the #1 mod that you should do to your HobbyPlus CR18P Evo Trail Hunter. So the mod basically just is oil filled shocks. So the stock shocks that they come with are these ones. I believe they're called friction damping shocks. So they don't have oil in them and they're just super bouncy, stiff, and they just make the performance of this truck terrible. So if you really want to up the performance of this truck for not much, I would seriously recommend you upgrading those to oil ones. And here in New Zealand, you have to get these trucks ordered in from America, and I don't actually know any other shocks that you can get in New Zealand that fit them. So I've just got these Endura shocks here, which are actually designed from FMS crawler, FCX18. So this is the shock pack here. So they're 45mm. I believe the stock shocks for this are 42 or 48mm, I think. So they're a fraction smaller, but they don't really change the ride height or anything. It's still fine. But yeah, the stock shocks are useless. They just, you drop it like that, they bottom out immediately. The flex is terrible and everything. It's just absolutely useless. So basically, I'm just going to run this truck and I'm going to show you how much of a difference these oil shocks make. So if you're in America, you guys have got a big advantage to us in New Zealand because Hobby Plus ships from America. So in the same order that you buy your car, you can just get their official Hobby Plus oil shocks, which are excellent, by the way. I think they're like big bore oil shocks or whatever. I'll put a screenshot here. But yeah, they make a massive difference. But if you're in New Zealand like me or somewhere else and you have to get them shipped over from the US, I think the shipping to get this here was already like $40, and I think to add parts it would go up to 80 or something. So I was just like, there must be some shocks that I can get for less than another $40. So I just got these FMS ones. They were a bit complicated to put on because obviously not exactly designed for this, but I did manage to get them on. So I'll show you underneath and show you how I got them on if you did want to buy these shocks here from Endura. The shocks themselves are excellent, and once they get on the truck, they just really up the performance of them. But basically, in the kit, there was they had like I think they're called pivot balls, which go under in the little loops for the shocks and stuff. And I'll get some close-ups right here of how I managed to do them. And they had little spaces and stuff, so I had to sort of muck around and get them all in. So how I did it was this. So in the pack with the shocks, you get these little pivot ball things like this. Now this one, you can see these edges here. So there was some other ones. There was these ones which were about sort of the same. Then there was some other ones which had a small one on one side and a bigger lip on the other. So I used those ones. So for all of these, the big lip points out. So if you look right here, you can see this little lip here. That's the bigger one. And then if you look here, there's a smaller one there. So the bigger one's on the outside, so it stops the shock sliding off past that screw. And then over the link, I did another one again. Big one on the outside to stop the link sliding that way, and little one on this side. Endura give you enough to do the whole thing, so I had to have the link there and the shock there, link there, shock there. But I didn't use the ones that the lips were the same sized. I just used the ones with the big lip on one side and the small lip on the other. And for all of them, the big lip needs to be facing outwards. The front was relatively easy when I think about it, but at the time it took me a wee while. So in the kit, Endura give you these little silver spacer things. I'm not even sure what they're for, but basically this is how I did the front. So I did the shock on the pivot ball, again big side out. Then I did the link on the pivot ball, big side out. Then I had to put a little spacer in there. I can't remember why. I think I had to put that spacer there to get the shocks to line up with the top ones. So that's how it went for there, for the bottom ends of the front shock. And then if you come across to the top of the front ones, so with the stock shocks, the Trail Hunter had these, they were these things here. These little black spacers, which were on the top of all of them. So I had to use the front two ones of those to get these shocks to stick out so that they'd line up with the bottom ones. Otherwise, they were on an angle. Basically, if you look in there, that little black thing there is one of the spacers, which just holds the shock outwards a little bit. and then there's the actual metal thing there, again, big side out, facing out, to hold the shock on. So I had to put those spaces there to get them to line up, the top and bottom ones, and even now they're still on a slight angle, but it doesn't really matter. So basically that's how I did it. It required a bit of fiddling, but once I sort of got it all worked out, yeah, you can see the little spaces in there, then the silver spaces and them lined up here, and then on the front, back like that, and then the top of the back was easy enough. I just used the pivot balls and bolted them on like that. I'm pretty sure for the front you have to you've got to make sure, oh yeah, that was why I had to put those black spaces at the front, because the screws that Endura give you, because the way that the Trail Hunter's designed, the ESC and receiver are right up against the frame rails. So because the screws were too long, they'd screw into here, then they'd ram up against the receiver box, and then they'd stick out a little bit. So I had to push the shocks outwards using the silver spacers they gave me, and the stock black spacer things that came on the original shocks. So I had to move them out a little bit to give the screws enough length type thing. So I had to use the smaller screws. But yeah. Anyway, that's basically how I did it. Getting the stock shocks off were a little bit hard because they have these little silver things here, and the shocks basically, rather than being a screw, well, the thing itself is a screw, but they like pop over into the ball things. So they were just quite hard to get the, well, the shocks came out alright, but getting the links out was a bit hard too, because it's like they have the two balls, and then that thing's screwed into the plastic there, and then the link went over this ball, and then the shock itself went over the outside ball. So it just took a bit of time to get the links off, and it was a bit fiddly, but I did use some, I think these long nose pries, and then I gave it a bit of a squeeze and it sort of popped off. So that's how I did it. It was a bit fiddly, but I did manage to get it to work properly. And I can tell you this, the performance is much better with oil-filled shocks in them. The stock shocks always bottomed out, whereas these ones bottom out a lot less. Even if just like going over little curbs and stuff, these ones are just way better. They flex much nicer. It means the truck's not all sort of like up like that, half and stuff. I did have a bit of problem, like the front, for some reason, is just much more stiff, and it doesn't like flex as well on the front than at the back. Like the front axle, it just, I don't know why, it's just really stiff. I thought, because they have like this little sway bar in here, which I thought might have been the problem, but I don't even really know what it's there for. I think it's like somehow to make the stock shocks just feel a bit more oil filled. But I don't know, for some reason the front's just a bit stiff. Anyway, we'll go and take it out on the trails and I'll show you how it performs. this video. I hope this was useful for you. I hope you can see the difference that oil-filled shocks make on RC crawlers. I would probably recommend getting the actual Hobby Plus branded shocks. These Enduro ones are great, but they aren't exactly designed for this crawler, so it's probably better to get the Hobby Plus ones, but they work alright. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day. We'll see you in the next video.